Good evening. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL live before lock. Cowboys at the Lions, and everything I've talked about all day long is irrelevant. That's great. Look, the books had all of the lines posted as if St. Brown was out. Didn't practice all week. You don't feel good about it, but sometimes that's the only information you have to go off of. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is, in fact, active. Beyond that, he looked okay at warmups. I saw him running routes. I saw him cutting on a dime. Honestly, I looked at the totals, at the receiving totals, which are now, updated across these books. It was nice to see that because I have a Jahmyr Gibbs bet on the over. That didn't really budge much at all because he's not as affected, but he's still affected. Jameson Williams has come down from the highest. Greg, he had the highest receiving prop on the entire slate today at 83.5. He's down anywhere from 61 to 63.5. And Amon-Ra St. Brown on FanDuel. That's not fair because there's heavy juice there. He's around like 63, 62.5. I honestly may look to bet. I may bet the over on St. Brown at 62.5, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But either way, how you doing?
So kind of similar thought to me, but I'd actually rather take the alt over on Amon-Ra St. Brown because this is obviously massive on the slate. So by the way, Loughran and I, we were a couple minutes late coming in because we were just we got the projection update. I had that running on my computer, so I've got Sims and everything up now on my. And this is also still subject to change because we could find out more information on Amon-Ra St. Brown, or we just might not find much until the game starts. This could very well be. He's going to go out there, see how he feels. If it feels good, maybe we get him full go. If he doesn't, maybe he only plays like a quarter. Maybe he's only a decoy today. I think there's a really wide range of outcomes with Amon-Ra St. Brown. But to what you were saying before, I don't think there's really a scenario where he just looks okay today. I think he's either going to look clearly inhibited or we're going to see a couple of series from the Lions and be like, oh, look, Amon-Ra St. Brown looks fine. So the point I'm getting at is I'm kind of interested in taking an alt over on Amon-Ra St. Brown and parlaying it maybe with like a receptions prop of his or something like that and seeing if we could get like, I don't know, a 3-to-1 price or something like that on Amon-Ra St. Brown to have 80 receiving yards.
You probably can, honestly. I mean, you go look on, I don't know if Onyx does alts. But his lowest prop is on Onyx right now. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys tell me how you think he looks here. He seems okay to me right here. And then here.
Yeah.
I mean, he plants that right foot, plants the right. I mean, yeah, he seems okay to me. Everyone's saying he's a decoy. He's going to be out maybe. But, like, this does not look like a guy to me that is very much, encumbered by some ankle injury. I'll throw this on loop for you guys to see it one more time. He doesn't look all that bad. I don't want to overreact, but that doesn't look all that bad to me. So, exactly. Yeah, he got the shot. I 100% agree with that. But he looks all right. So, Greg, this is a personal decision for anybody, though, right? Like you can do what you want. I'll do it, but I don't think we can really tell you what the best or worst decision is. His prop is much lower than it would typically be. The last time this happened was when Puka Nacua, who was supposed to be down for like 8 weeks, came back after 4 weeks on the IR, and I was like, man, I don't know. And he had like 100 yards in the first half. So is that definitely the same situation? No, but this weird stuff does happen more often than we'd like to believe.
And you and I were doing this exact show last year. We talked about betting alt overs on Puka Nacua, didn't do it, and he destroyed all of his. And by the way, because I remember the situation. I don't remember the exact numbers, but we didn't want to play him in DFS because his receiving, it was crazy low.
It was like 28 or something.
Yeah,
or
like insanely low. He hit the over on it in the first drive of the game. Well, You and I were sitting here. You and I were bullshitting after the show ends like we normally do. You've got the game on the TV behind you. He hit the over-under receiving yard prop on the first drive of that game.
That's right.
The numbers are not as low as that or anything like that. But here's what I did. I just built the same game parlay. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 90 receiving yards, 5+ receptions, and then Jameson Williams under 63.5 receiving yards plus 524.
Love it. I would put St. Brown at 6 receptions, though. I'd put him at 7. I like it, though. Stiegel, listen, I know this is a DFS show, but we are talking like this is all relative. This is all pertinent information for DFS. There's just no doubt about it. The reason is that we're all orthopedic doctors. See, that's the thing. I'm not a doctor. So I'm just looking at a guy running and cutting and saying, I couldn't do that at full strength. So he looks okay. We'll see how it goes. Make your own call. The reason I think he's super interesting today is because Jared Goff has been pressured a lot lately. And by the way, welcome to everybody. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, atone for your sins this evening. Goes a long way, and we appreciate you for it. He's been bad under pressure, but he's been pressured a lot, and the offensive line hasn't held up. This Dallas defensive line has been crazy good. Even dating back to before they added Quinnen Williams, they were improving. And now they've arguably been the best D-line over the last month. So who is the guy? This is what I was talking about all day, but in the sense of like a Jahmyr Gibbs becoming that safety valve, which I still to some extent think he will be today. We saw that against Philly, right, where he had 80 receiving yards. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, if there was ever a game to just get the ball to the guy that you trust the most, assuming he's okay, God, I mean, it's St. Brown. So that's why I somewhat said it tongue in cheek, but that's why I said 6 receptions, because if he's busy today, I think he's going to be really busy today.
I agree. I mean, so also let me throw the Sims up on screen right now, because here's what our data is saying about Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's a handful of things. First off, he's only projected for around 20% ownership. I just think that's what the case is going to be given what his prop lines are. Unless this way comes up, he's just going to be projected fairly low everywhere as a result. So you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, project for 20% ownership. We also have a pretty modest projection on him relative to where he would normally be priced. Look at the guys in the flex spot. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown for 16.7 fantasy points. So Pickens, Lamb, Goff, Prescott, Gibbs, all ahead of him. But because there is variance taken into account, ceiling, floor outcomes, and all that in the Sims, Amon-Ra St. Brown, despite a fairly low 16.7 fantasy point projection, did show up in 43% of lineups in the Sims in this sim run here. So is he a lock to be healthy? No, but I want to be, this is me learning from the Puka Nacua situation, Lofty.
Me too.
I would rather be on
made
the
a
side.
mistake.
Yeah. I want to be on the side of the lower owned spot in this scenario. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work out, but I'm pretty confident that over time, if this slate played out a bunch of times and you play Amon-Ra St. Brown every single time in this spot, it's going to work out more than 20% of the time that he's owned right now.
So I agree with everything except one thing. I worry that ownership projections across the industry will just be flat out wrong on St. Brown today. I'm not convinced that his receiving lines and everything accurately represent where he should be projected and what his ownership should be. You see this happen far too often with certain players too. Like a lot of times this year, guys are just projected much lower than they end up being as a result. Would you ladder Amon-Ra at 100 plus? I mean, I'd rather just put a small play on the, like, whatever alt you feel comfortable with. But no, I don't want to take like 1.5 units and allocate that across a 5-rung ladder, because he might just not hit any of them. That's the other thing. St. Brown might just not hit anything. So I don't know about you, Greg. That's probably how I'd play it. I'd take like a, half unit play on the 80 plus or something, or 90 plus. That's more up to speed for me.
I mean, I already told you guys how I played it. I already placed a bet and told you guys what it is, how I'm doing it. I want to take full advantage of not just what happens if Amon-Ra St. Brown has a big game, But also in that case, I want the under on, because it's very rare that you're going to see Jameson Williams with a receiving yard prop this high.
Yeah,
he's usually somebody who has a receiving yard prop in like the 45 to 50 or so range. So I want to take the alt over on Amon-Ra St. Brown and then also an under on Jameson Williams. That's what I'm doing with it.
Truffles, if you're going to be high on St. Brown, wouldn't you rather have him at captain over flex? It's a great question. And we do. So to answer your question is we just have him in both spots, right?
Yeah.
You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, second to only Gibbs. And you know what? I'll tell you right now, even if St. Brown had no injury concerns coming into this game, I would still be very happy with Jahmyr Gibbs as my highest exposed captain anyway.
Yeah. That's also something that I don't have any kind of issue with. Obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown playing is going to be, at least to some respects, a little bit of a negative to Jahmyr Gibbs, but not as much as it is to the other players on the Lions. And here's the other reality of this too, is everybody on the Lions is impacted by Amon-Ra St. Brown playing. And it's not like you can look at the Lions and be like, oh, I'm just going to fade the Lions on a 1-game slate tonight now.
Yeah, exactly. This changes everything because Williams, his price point was way off, right? Jameson Williams' price point was wrong if St. Brown was out. But now, is Williams' price point wrong because he's in? I think it's probably around where it should be. He's still a good player. But with St. Brown in, I mean, you go back to Jameson Williams having potential like 0 catch upside. Now, not in this game. It sounds highly unlikely. But I am still surprised that Williams has a higher receiving prop than St. Brown. They're essentially identical in a spot like this. I'm with you, man. I really do believe he'll be a higher owned than that, but I don't think he's going to be the same chalk that he would be if there was no injury concern coming into this game.
Agreed. So for me, I think that Jameson Williams is overpriced at $8,400, especially when you consider we still have him projected for 36% ownership in the flex. And he is, where's his captain owner? I guess it won't even be here because he isn't showing up in any lineups for us as a captain. I'll just look it up. Yes, we've got him projected for 9% captain ownership as well for today. So I'll rerun this because we're probably going to get some more updates as we go here. But I'm most inclined to be underweight to the field on Jameson Williams with this price tag and him still pulling decent ownership.
Yeah, me too. So Gil Torres. Now, what do you do with Kennedy, who had ownership before the Brown news? I mean, Kennedy feels practically unplayable at this point.
Yeah.
If you're curious, go ahead.
I was going to say, you do with him whatever you would do with him on a normal Lions slate where Amon-Ra St. Brown is playing. So were you consider it? We've seen the Lions in a handful of primetime games this year. Have you played Tom Kennedy in any of those other games? If not,
well, the only difference is that Khalif Raymond is also out.
True.
That's the only difference. But still, he went from having like a 30-some yard receiving prop to 7.5.
Yeah.
And you know why he's more affected by it than anybody else is because if you look at last game, who ran the primary routes out of the slot after St. Brown got hurt? It was Kennedy. 65% he ran out of the slot. Whereas Tesla is going to be running from the right, from on the outside. You can line Jameson Williams up pretty much anywhere, but Tom Kennedy is directly influenced by this. So that's a spot that hurts. Now Tesla's his receiving prop also is going to crater 15.5. He's an interesting one to me. Now, do I think that you want to get a lot of Isaac Tesla at 4,400? No, but also he does get targeted downfield. Like if I had to play one of those guys, a 2K Kennedy or a $4,400 Tesla, I would rather have Tesla because even if he only has a couple targets, one of them might just end up being a 50-yard touchdown.
That's always the case with Tesla. It's kind of funny because the player he's probably most comparable to in the NFL is Jameson Williams in terms of just being this like crazy boom bust guy. there are almost no short plays that Tesla's involved. And even the catches he makes are mostly absurd catches.
Yeah.
So extreme boom bust option, $4,400. I'm not crazy interested in him with St. Brown being back, but I would prefer him to Kennedy.
JP Mack. Kennedy showed a lot last week. Feel like he'll get some looks, a lot more than everyone thinks now that Brown is in. Look, man, this is what I can say about him. He is a career practice squad player. Tom Kennedy's been in the league for longer than you think. Most people just don't know about him because after the preseason, he reverts to he goes to the practice squad. Like, that's what he does. So him having 4 for 35 last week, it's not, is that enough to move the needle when they know what they have in this guy? He's been on the team for years now. Go look how long he's been on the team. Like 3-4 years Tom Kennedy's been on this team. Maybe like 5. Might be like 5. I don't know. A long time. So, yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, he's been also. I do you, without looking in front of you, how old do you think Tom Kennedy is?
28.
29. So you're close.
Yeah,
you're close. 29 though. This is not somebody who is, like a 24-year-old 6th round pick or something. Like the guy, to your point, he's been around for a minute. He has 18 career receptions for 231 yards. Yeah.
Look, who knows? Maybe he does fill in a little bit in Khalif Raymond's absence. He will a little bit. He still has a prop, right? He's active and he has a prop. So yeah, if you wanted to get to some like trace amounts of Tom Kennedy, sure. I just don't know if last week is enough to be like, man, we got to get this guy the ball more because he's been on the teams. Chat's saying 6 years. So it's a long time. I do want to check. You reran this, right? How much different does it look now that you reran it?
Yeah, we did another projections update at 7:21. So I wanted to make sure that I had this updated with the most recent prop updates and whatnot. So as far as what changed, Amon-Ra St. Brown, about the same. Jameson Williams also, his ownership came down actually a little bit. Jameson Williams did in that last run. His projection came down a little bit as well. So we got Jameson Williams at 14.85 fantasy points now. This is one of these funny things that happens with ownership in DFS. Because of Amon-Ra St. Brown now playing, we had Jameson Williams' projection come down, but then his ownership came way down. And as a result, we actually got to more exposure to Jameson Williams, although it's still not all that much. It's 24% of him in the flex and a little bit in the captain at 7%. But we had 0% captain lineups with him before, and it was like 15% in the flex.
What are we doing with some of these cheaper options now? Because this is what's most interesting to me. Before, Tesla was cheap enough. Kennedy was cheap enough. Mind you, Brock Wright and Sam Laporta are out. So are we just jamming like Ross Dwelly and Anthony Ferkser now? I mean, who are our highest exposed guys down there at the bottom of the player pool?
So all the way at the bottom, it's a little bit spread out. We do have some exposure to Tom Kennedy here. He's in 16% of lineups. We got 15% Malik Davis. Maybe a little bit of bias by the man running the projections, but Malik Davis. Malik Davis in 15% of lineups too. That actually is my favorite cheap option, Malik Davis, because he actually plays a role for the Cowboys. It's not, like a crazy significant one, but it's more significant than what most of these really cheap punt guys get. I mean, Malik Davis, 3 carries last week, 3 carries the week before, 4 carries the week before that. It's a really small sample size, but he's averaging 7.5 yards per carry this year. So there's also a scenario where if Javonte Williams ever gets banged up in one of these games, I think Malik Davis is in line to get a pretty decent workload in that kind of scenario. But there's another thing to, like, if somebody had 3-4 carries on a main slate, you'd never consider them. $1,400 on a main slate, though, for a guy with big play upside, 3-4 carries, that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, it's not terrible at all. Look, there's a few guys on this slate that can, do some weird stuff and ruin a slate or make it great. Like Kevontae Turpin's one of those guys. Turpin has one play ability to just break one. He's done it on showdowns. As a matter of fact, he did it last year on a showdown slate. CeeDee Lamb might have been out, but I think it was Cooper Rush in there. Threw him a touch. You guys remember that game? Was it against the Giants? I can't remember who it was against, but it was Cooper Rush. And Turpin ended up being a necessity on that slate. Anthony Ferkser is the furthest thing from encouraging, but you know what? It's Thursday night. Obscure tight ends always score on Thursday night. In all seriousness, the Detroit Lions do target their like second and third string tight ends in the end zone all the time. So all right, was it Texans? Man, you guys got a good memory. Michelle Laffy, should I fade Goff in the flex? Go with Gibbs and someone else in the Lions offense. I mean, Goff, I think, is a much better play in the flex. And I already know Greg agrees because I know how he feels about statuesque quarterbacks. I think Goff is a good flex play today. I do not love him at the captain spot. He's not one of my favorite plays at captain at all.
He shows up not in a massive amount of lineups, but 4% of lineups do have Jared Goff in the captain. I prefer that number to be 0 for the reasons that you had mentioned before. There's so many good skill position players on the Lions. It seems so unlikely to me that Jared Goff would have a big game and not be outscored by like Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams. If he has a 300-yard passing game or something like that, one of these wide receivers is going to have 100 yards and a touchdown. That just outscores QB production. He has 0 rushing upside.
He's also more expensive than everyone not named Jahmyr Gibbs on his team. So, yeah. Stiegel, is Kennedy active? I didn't look at the inactives, but he must be. He has to be. Yeah, because they still don't have Khalif Raymond.
Mm-hmm.
And with Raymond out, so yeah, he's in Kirby Joseph. We knew that. Raymond. Yeah, everybody we expected to be out is out. And then as far as the Cowboys go, no real significant inactive. Man, everyone's asking for the most duped lineups.
We could certainly go ahead and look at the most duped lineups now by popular demand. Here is the lineup. By the way, instant thought on seeing the numbers here. Nothing too crazy duped for today, which makes sense when you look at our ownership projections. When you have a weird scenario like this, where you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a stud with low ownership and how it's kind of impacting pricing, you don't have all that many dupes today. In a 50,000 lineup pool here, only 3 lineups duped more than 100 times. Number 1, it's Pickens, Prescott, Montgomery, Gibbs, Bates, and Turpin. But the reality is there isn't like one lineup that's expected to be duped insanely heavily, which does make sense when you look at our exposures. We don't have anybody more than 50% on the flex. We actually only have 2 guys even more owned than 38% in the flex. And then you go to the captain spot, you've got Gibbs in 23% of lineups, Pickens in 16% projected ownership, Lamb 14.5%. The ownership's really spread out today, so it makes sense.
It's very spread out. My captains, the ones I like the most, it is Gibbs, it is St. Brown, and it is Lamb and Pickens. I mean, realistically, this Detroit team, their secondary has given up big plays. They coughed up 4 passing touchdowns just last week to Jordan Love on Thanksgiving. The week before that, Jameis Winston torched them. Wan'Dale Robinson had a career game. There are some weaknesses here. Terrion Arnold's done for the year with a shoulder injury. Kirby Joseph remains out with that nagging knee injury. Those are not nothing. Those are significant, and they haven't been able to get the same pressure outside of Aiden Hutchinson that they did a year ago. So, all of that taken into consideration, I'm not really sure how far down I want to go at the captain spot. Now, maybe you have different opinion here. We can talk through that. But to me, it's Gibbs, St. Brown, it's Pickens, it's Lamb. And as a matter of fact, I don't hate Dak Prescott at the captain. I would actually prefer him a little bit over Jared Goff, because I think if one team has trouble running the football and is forced to just air it out constantly, I think it's more likely that is the Cowboys as a 3.5 point road dog against a good run D for the most part, whereas Dallas's run defense could struggle with Jahmyr Gibbs today. So I don't hate Dak, but he would be my 5th favorite captain behind those guys I mentioned.
Yeah, I do have, we are getting overweight to him in the Sims. I have a little bit of interest in Jake Ferguson at 1% ownership in the captain spot. He's not necessarily a cheap option or anything like that, but, you know, he is $11,100. It's cheaper than the studs. It affords you a little bit more flexibility, but I don't really want to punt in the captain spot. So there's too many players with massive upsides.
Yeah, and on a slate that has a monster total too. Like what is this total settled in at now? 54.5. Is it up? 55.5 now. 55.5. What's that?
So I was actually thinking about that. So yeah, it went up a point because of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yep. Yeah, that's the crazy part. That's a huge difference, man. So not the fact that it went from 54 to 55, but the fact that it's such a monster total game that for one of these other guys, I'm glad you brought that up. For one of these other guys to be the optimal captain, you in all likelihood need this to be a relatively low scoring game, because that happens a lot where you'll get a guy that has like 3 for 30 and a touchdown and it's like, oh, he's optimal today. But on this slate, what would you need, right, for a like Tesla to be the optimal captain, or for Turpin or Flournoy or any of these other guys to be optimal captain? I think it'd be tough. I even think it's tough to see like a Javonte Williams as an optimal captain. Don't get me wrong. In this game environment, he's going to get a lot of work. I like it. He's just not up there as one of my favorites.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's the cheapest I'd go is Jake Ferguson at captain. I wouldn't go below that. And I don't necessarily love him, but I do agree with our Sims in terms of like 5% of him. I think that's reasonable if I'm going to be going down to a more contrarian captain.
So check this out. I just pulled our top stacks tool up. You guys, hopefully you use this if you're sub. But also, if you didn't even know about it, it's a great tool to use. The top single game and top plays tool for the showdown slates, but also the top stacks tool. So I'll throw this on the screen for you, Greg. Get your thoughts. Get everyone watching's thoughts. So the top overall score probability is still Jahmyr Gibbs by a lot. But then you have Pickens, Lamb, and St. Brown all grouped closely together with Dak not that far behind. If you're talking about leverage spots, the one guy who is positively leveraged out of that group is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I know you know this, but I'll point it out anyway. It is very unusual for a guy at that price point to have positive leverage. So you are seeing that today where he is getting about 5% projected ownership at captain, almost 8% optimal captain probability. Pretty big. Now, this is assuming that his ownership does come around there at the captain. I personally think it's going to be a little bit higher than that because he's Amon-Ra St. Brown. But yeah, you're seeing him positively leveraged in the tools for sure, along with your buddy Malik Davis. You mentioned Jake Ferguson, him as well. Tom Kennedy too. And I think that's just because he's going to get zero ownership today.
Yeah, we've got him. What was it in the last? I think it was 9% owned in the last. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, 9% projected ownership for Tom Kennedy. Yeah, he's as a punt. Like most of these punts are fairly shitty looking. He's projected for under 3 fantasy points. So it's not like there's some sort of insanely high projection on him. There's a lot of cheap guys you could consider. None of them that I want to prioritize. But yeah, he is viable relative to his price point.
Yeah. All right. We'll go back to the Sims here. I wanted to show you that though for a second. All right. So we talked about some of these cheap guys. You'll probably mix and match them. When I ran the Sims and, used 3 uniques in this spot, it's funny. This is the first time I've just favorited 150 with 3 uniques, and it's still the minimum. So the lowest favorited lineup, this is the first time on Showdown all year. The lowest favorited lineup is still positive simmed ROI.
I would imagine here. Let's look here.
Yeah, try it.
So I have
because I get to 6%. Right, usually it goes to like minus 30%, and then I have to adjust.
So 2 uniques has an average sim ROI of 221.1 here.
What's the minimum?
See. The minimum is 156. Let's see if we go to 3 uniques. 3 uniques puts this at 74 and 175. So yeah, way higher than normal. Which also, it's just because the lineup's already so diverse on this slate. And then if we just have it on the 0, it is 166 and 231. Not even that much different than what it was at for the 2 uniques.
Yeah. No, not at all. This is it's a weird slate. It's a really weird slate. I mean, even guys like Ross Dwelly are in play, and you're going to just have to live with that. You know, the one guy I'm struggling with a little bit, and I don't know if I want to do anything here or just leave it as it is. David Montgomery. I guess it's fine. I'm getting around 23% right now. But 7% at captain, this just doesn't feel like a Montgomery game to me. It really doesn't. I mean, this doesn't feel like the type of game where David Montgomery has heavy involvement. But I'm not going to change it because it's the Detroit Lions at home. But again, I go back to what I was saying to you before, and to what you were kind of saying as well, is that if David Montgomery, what does it take for David Montgomery to be optimal today?
Jahmyr Gibbs getting hurt would be one scenario.
No, but like, how many fantasy points would he need to be optimal?
Yeah,
like
so
20, and not even at captain, 20 before the bonus or before the multiplier. Even that feels low.
Realistically, you need like 2 touchdowns. So like two 1-yard touchdowns, or Jahmyr Gibbs gets tackled at the 1.
But they don't even play that way, because if Jahmyr Gibbs get tackled at the 1, Jahmyr Gibbs is getting the touchdown, because they just like rotate their running backs by drive, and they don't even rotate. You know, it's very rare that they rotate them within a drive. So
it's also, so David Montgomery, I always view him as a pretty touchdown dependent player who you're not going to get a ton of volume out of him, in terms of like, you're not going to be getting, 20 plus rush attempts and 5 plus targets or anything like that. And then also the thing that's always hard is pretty much every Lions game, because it's the Lions, there's a ton of really good skill position players. And then you're playing a team like the Cowboys. There's Dak Prescott, Javonte Williams, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. I think the hurdle for him to get in the optimal lineup, it's fairly high, especially because he's $7K in the flex. It's not like you're getting David Montgomery at 4,600.
Right. This is how I feel about it too, honestly. I mean, if I could bring it down a little bit, and maybe I will, but it just feels like a really tough spot for Montgomery to get there. That's why I asked your opinion. With the thinking that, am I just seeing this the wrong way? But I'm not sure I am. I think it's a tough path to get there. It really is. We'll see though. I still like Pickens a lot. I still like Lamb a lot at captain. St. Brown, Gibbs is just obvious. So if you're giving up exposure to them to get to, a Montgomery, that, in my opinion, becomes a little bit more difficult in a spot like that. I'd even prefer Dak over Montgomery at captain. The famous last words here. This isn't going to end well.
Yeah, it's I really think at this price point for David Montgomery, you're relying on multiple touchdowns or Jahmyr Gibbs injury.
Yeah. This is just a fun slate because there's 2 really distinct ways you could play it. You could just go insanely overweight to Jameson Williams and go basically fading Amon-Ra St. Brown, or take the complete opposite direction. One of them might be right. Or you know what happens is both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams aren't great, or both of them are good. There's a million different ways it can go, but I think the spot that's getting you the most leverage is really taking a stand one way or another on Amon-Ra St. Brown's workload today.
Yes, with the last projections update, here's what we ended up getting on Amon-Ra St. Brown. He showed up in 31% of lineups in the flex and 17% of lineups in the captain. So overall, about 50% exposure to Amon-Ra St. Brown, which in any other time that the Lions are playing the Cowboys, honestly, on a main slate, if Amon-Ra St. Brown is healthy, a main slate with like 12 games, Amon-Ra St. Brown's probably more popular than 19% owned against the Cowboys on a main slate. If we had a full slate of games.
Yeah. Well, all right. So what about this then? Because Tyler asked this question, and we talked about this a minute ago, but since there's so many skill players are high, does it make sense to captain a guy like Turpin? I don't think so, because they would need, I just think they need too much, unless it ends up being a low scoring game and kind of shocks everybody. If that's the case, then yes. There's a path, there's a world where it's like a 21-17 game and Turpin ends up having a 50-yard touchdown, sure, and a return touchdown or something crazy. But again, I think threading that needle is difficult. I know I use that phrase a lot, but in this case, it's true. And I feel that way with a lot of these specific guys. Like with Montgomery at captain, that's one thing. Are you okay with the 22% Montgomery at flex?
No, I want to have less than that.
I do too. We're going to be in trouble today. We're on the same page with this, but I feel the same way. It's just, I don't love it.
Shout out to SC, by the way, left us a super chat. So thanks for all you guys do. We appreciate it. Yeah, hold that for until we see what Amon-Ra St. Brown's final stat line is. This could be a rough one, or it could be a really good one. I don't think it's going to be anywhere in between, though.
No, but appreciate it, man. Look, we try. There's going to be times where it doesn't work out. But look, the question is more or less, would you rather have us just being like, well, no, I mean, we love Amon-Ra St. Brown today. And man, we also love Jameson Williams. And we just think, play both as well. It's not going to help you at all. Greg and I will take some stands and sometimes they don't work. Like our Trevion Williams stand the other week. In theory, it made a lot of sense, right?
Trevion Henderson.
So I said Williams. Yeah. Trevion.
Yeah. I was thinking for a second, like what's
my fault. Yeah. Trevion Henderson. Yeah. Like in theory, it made a lot of sense. What about the defenses here? Because just wanted to point out that I have no problem, not a captain, but I have no problem getting to some of the defenses in a game like this. I don't want to get overexposed to them, but the Cowboys defense is very cheap. That D-line is getting a lot of pressure. Very real possibility that they could force some turnovers today.
There should be a lot of pass attempts in the game. That's how defenses get opportunities to score fantasy points.
Yeah. I know Goff hasn't thrown a lot of interceptions this year. Totally get that. But he's been on bad under pressure. They're going to get pressure. St. Brown is in, which helps Goff for sure. But in both sides of this game, this is also, another reason I wouldn't hate the defenses here. We talk about this just being like an insane shootout, right? But what about the fact too, Greg, that this game, whoever loses this game is essentially out of playoff contention. And it's not technically, right? They're not actually eliminated. The Cowboys with a loss have a 9% chance of making the playoffs. The Lions with a loss have a 20% chance of making the playoffs. And the Lions in that division, right? They'd be highly unlikely to win their division. And then the Cowboys, same goes for them. Even with the Eagles struggling right now, it'd be a tough hill to climb. So yeah, the likelihood that, I'm not saying they're actually out. We see crazy stuff happen all the time, but this would really, really hurt their playoff chances, whoever loses this game.
No doubt. And there's another reality too, where these teams are competing against each other for a playoff spot.
Yeah, so right. Right.
It's not just a loss. It's you're losing a game on a team you're directly competing with for a playoff spot.
For all we know, there could be a tiebreaker in week 18, but at the end of the season, the tiebreaker could be like a head-to-head between the Cowboys. Actually, no, that probably would not be the case because the Cowboys have a tie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fucking tie.
Yeah, that's going to be what will probably, unless the Lions end up tying, I don't know, some team down the stretch of the year. But yeah, fairly unlikely.
So MRRNB, Mr. 412 says, I think the total's too high for a defensive game, but then again, it could possibly happen. Thursday night games have been wild this season. Exactly. So neither Greg or I are saying that we expect the defenses to necessarily be optimal. But when you think about it like this, and I think this may put things in perspective for you guys, because it does for me as well. And I know you've mentioned this before, Greg, too. But when we all think something, maybe that's the time to not do what all of us are thinking, you know? Like that Arizona game against the Cowboys a handful of weeks ago, nobody wanted to play Arizona defense. So in these times where everyone is thinking Cowboys are red hot, Cowboys can't lose, you know, they look great right now, 55.5 point total game. Now, while I'm not playing either of them at captain, I am okay with the flex spots. I really am. And it's possible to have like a 2-touchdown defensive game or a bunch of sacks and a defensive touchdown or return touchdown and still give up 28 points and still be optimal. So I'm just above 20% on both of these in the flex, about 2x the field on both of them. The Sims usually like to do that. I'm not going to change anything.
So the other thing too is it's not like this is some crazy high projection on the Lions, 5.5 fantasy points. And it's still enough for them to show up in some lineups. The other thing too, I mean, you and I bring this up all the time when it comes to defenses, but you know, all it takes is a punt return for a touchdown, a kick return, a weird fluky fumble play where somebody runs it back. And then all of a sudden you've got one of these cheap defenses puts a touchdown on the board and you need to play them. At this kind of ownership, 12% for the Lions or the Cowboys being, what was the price point on the Cowboys? Where'd they go? Cowboys being $3,600. You know, you're comparing the Cowboys to like Tom Kennedy in terms of who we think scores more fantasy points. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good way. That's a very good way to look at it. Yeah, especially if you need to get cheap. Right. Laffy didn't pick up on Mr. R&B. Damn, you're right. That is what it was. But why don't people capitalize letters? Like, see how you did that, G Mega Manly? You capitalized it, made it real easy. You know what I mean? Like, that's easy. But when people don't capitalize those, I really struggle. How about kickers today? Spags made a really good point on Bates that Dan Campbell just goes for it on 4th down so often that it probably does hurt his value a little bit. Not to say he isn't playable, but it does hurt a little bit where if it's 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, like even at your own, or even at the, 30, 40, whatever, in field goal range, Campbell's likely going to go for it.
Yeah. There's a hand, and especially it's not just that he goes for it a lot, but also consider the scenario, right? Where this is a high leverage game that makes him even more apt to go for it, where it's a game, primetime football against a team they're contending with in the standings. So I do see it the same way as you, where if I'm rostering one of the kickers, it's so clearly Aubrey as one of the 2 kickers that I'm going to roster.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I feel like the Cowboys in primetime games are way more apt to be like, shit, primetime, we got to send Brandon Aubrey out there for a 66-yard field goal, whereas the Lions are the total opposite.
Right. And I mean, why would you not send Brandon Aubrey out there from his own 10?
Yeah.
Like that guy's ridiculous. He's just so good that it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I'm okay with either of them, but I'm with you that I'd rather get more Aubrey. I don't have a ton of either, though. 24 and 21% Aubrey and Bates, respectively. I'm not surprised by that. If there's one guy that you are underweight on right now that scares you, who would it be? Honestly, for me, it's Jameson Williams because I'm well underweight on him now after this St. Brown news.
That's a clear one. I mean, the other one too, just from potential blowback standpoint now would be David Montgomery because just because we said nothing but negative things about him. But I mean, the Javonte Williams one, is a really sensible option just from a standpoint of the wide range of outcomes that he always brings to the table. But the way I'm looking at this slate, he's comparably priced to Amon-Ra St. You said Jameson Williams, not Javonte Williams, correct?
Yeah, Jameson.
Okay, yeah. So as far as Jameson Williams, about comparably priced to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a little bit cheaper, $1,400, but usually there's a bigger gap between them in terms of pricing. And then he's live for a 60-yard touchdown catch at any point in time. Or he's also live for Amon-Ra St. Brown to just re-injure himself, only be a decoy today. But the field is kind of playing it as if that's what they're expecting to happen.
Yeah, that is also true. But if Jameson Williams ends up having a big game, I'm probably in some trouble. I can live with it. That's okay. These showdowns are tough, man. These showdowns are real tough. Or you just overload and go like Amon-Ra captain with Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and Goff. Like that's a crazy way to do it.
We do have, we got a super chat here from our old pal EMAC. He says, full hearts, clear eyes, can't lose. I feel like I'm missing something.
It's from a movie.
Yeah. All right. So I was missing something. Yeah. What movie?
Striptease.
Never seen it or heard of it. Never. What is
Friday Night Lights. Friday Night Lights.
Oh, okay. Striptease. That's, I mean, to EMAC, that was as kinky as it got when EMAC was an up and comer in the 20s.
EMAC's probably seen Striptease. I certainly have. It was from like the 90s.
Is it?
There's Chavez, Demi Moore. Showgirls. Yeah, yo, Morgan. Showgirls. My best friend growing up had an older brother that was watching. So that was like my first introduction to tits. Showgirls. I remember that one vividly. That was actually the one I was trying to think of, Morgan, and I couldn't think of it. But yeah, that's hilarious. Those are the 90s movies. Wasn't that around the same time as Striptease though, Morgan? Showgirls, I couldn't think of it. I'm so mad that you got. Actually, I'm glad you thought of it. But anyway, if you had to say, all right, I'm hand building a lineup here, right? Mm-hmm. And I am throwing it into a single entry. What does it look like? What's the captain spot look like? How does this shape up?
I don't know if you did this by coincidence, but I was about to read off Captain Akella tagged me in Discord and wanted to know who's our single entry captain today. I was about to read that question.
That was totally coincidental.
All right. So single entry captain, it has to be Amon-Ra St. Brown for me. Has to be the answer. Most upside for the least.
I think I'm with you here.
Most upside for the least amount of ownership. Also, the most downside for anybody relative to price. But I'm playing for the upside here.
Yeah, I got to do it too. I mean, it's him, or if you're being pretty conservative, Jahmyr Gibbs, just because Jahmyr Gibbs is in a great spot. But the truth is though, if I told you you don't pay attention to the slate and you hit me up later tonight and you're like, yo, who was the optimal captain? If I said, oh, it was Pickens, you'd go, oh, that makes sense. If I was like, oh, it's CeeDee Lamb, you'd go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, it was St. Brown. I could see that, right? Gibbs, yep. Dak Prescott. Oh, really? Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. There's 5 or 6 guys that if they were the optimal captain today, it wouldn't surprise anybody. Man, a lot of people think Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be a decoy. Look, I don't know. I'm probably reading too far into the fact that he was at warmups cutting on a dime there and looked fine to me. Like, looked how a normal player would look in warmups, but he didn't look all that bad. So maybe he is a decoy. Maybe he isn't. It is a big game for them. Would you rather use him as a decoy today and risk re-aggravating or re-injuring that ankle? I don't know. But if you think he's going to be a decoy, then my suggestion is you literally play 0 of them. If I thought he was going to be a decoy, like old school Julio Jones style, right? When they just let Calvin Ridley feast, I would play none of them. I don't think it's going to be that way, but if that's how you think it is, then go for it.
So I want to be clear too. I have no clue. I don't have a read on Amon-Ra St. Brown at all. I have no clue. I don't know if he's going to be good tonight, bad, limited, 100%. I have no clue. The only thing I'm looking at is I don't think anybody else knows either. People could say in chat, he's gonna be a decoy, he's gonna be fine, this, that, and the other. I don't think anybody really knows. What I do know is the ownership. I know that the field is playing him in 4% of lineups in the captain spot. The majority of the field is approaching this as if he's going to be a decoy. And if that's what the field is doing, and it's a really unknown situation, I just want to do the opposite of what the field is doing. To be clear, if Amon-Ra St. Brown was 20% owned in the captain spot and 40% owned in the flex, and everything else was the same, I would barely be wanting to play him.
I really think his ownership. I think his ownership's coming up, though. I do. I mean, first of all, his receiving line's already getting bet up. Like he's up. He's come up a little bit on all these books. Not a ton, but a little bit. Let's take a guess. What do you think he's going to be owned at captain?
Based on the vibes in chat, pretty low.
Yeah.
I'll say 4%.
All right. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm a lot higher than that. I'm going to say double that.
I mean, is there anybody in chat? Also, it's kind of funny how people think that we are like massively influential to who people play. You know, there's definitely some people listen to us. There's a lot of people in chat too who they have their opinions. They listen to our opinions. Just kind of a dialogue back and forth with everybody thinks. I've seen very few people agree with us on Amon-Ra St. Brown in chat. It seems like nearly everybody's just taking the opposite side.
I don't know. You think? There you go. Jack off. Solid name. ASB first drive to catch a pass minus 145. Saying that's not a decoy. That is an interesting. It's just such a strange niche market that I have no idea how accurate something like that could ever be. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. Where was that question from Morgan? Morgan, gun to your head with the asterisk. I know what you're doing there. I think you'd be okay, though. Maybe not. I don't know in YouTube. Maybe they would censor that. Pickens or CD? Pickens. Gun to my head, Pickens.
I'm going to... I'll also clarify that whether I'm just asked to give my opinion or if there's a gun to my head, it's not going to change. I'm going to pick the same guy no matter what here. But I'm going to go CeeDee Lamb. I know that Pickens is lower owned in the captain spot, but he's also $1,200 more expensive. And my long-term feeling is still that CeeDee Lamb is going to put up bigger numbers than Pickens, and Pickens is the more expensive of the two today.
Yeah, they're both good. They're just both good plays today. I hope I'm going to have a lot of both of them. I already got my lineups in, and I do. I have quite a bit of both of those guys. So you say around 4% on St. Brown. I'm going to say around like 8. Okay. In the main contest, but it doesn't really matter all that much. And then all of these other guys like Jameson, I think it will be lower. Not than him, not than St. Brown, of course, but I do think it will be lower. These slates make it very difficult to project a lot of times. They've become very difficult to project because I don't even think the books know where to project St. Brown today. I don't know if they know where to have St. Brown. So there's that. Anyway, make sure if you guys want to get access to these tools and you haven't yet, place a bet with the link in the description during the game. Just choose any of these, click claim offer. You get a free month of the Sims core for every single one. Every one equals an entirely new month of the Sims. You heard that right. Name another site out there that has an offer like this. They simply don't. Out of pocket, you'd be paying $130 a month. In this instance, you deposit $5 or $10. You get 100 in bonus picks on Onyx, which is a sweepstake book, when you spend 10, and you get a free month of the Sims. Just follow those steps. These 4 simple steps. That's it. There's nothing more to it. Stack them. Pick 'em sites, DFS pick 'em sites, sweepstakes books, sports books. Any of these partners here equal a new month. You can stack as many as you want until you run out. Even if you took advantage of the Black Friday sale, this is still available to you. Nowhere else are you going to find. And you can mix and match sports, NBA, NFL, run them concurrent. It makes no difference to us. So that bet settles, that lineup settles tonight. You wake up in the morning, or even you send the email tonight with those screenshots of your welcome email and your first settled bet. And you wake up in the morning, guess what? You've got access to the tools for a month or more. Can't beat it, man. And we've absolutely been killing it lately. How cool is it to see Jay Snides? I assume you saw this. The sub take down 60K in 3 combined contests with the single lineup sim on Sunday. Like, that makes this all worth it, man.
Yep. Hand builds lineups in the single lineup sim. And it looked like, did he have to, because it looked like one of the lineups had like 197 fantasy points.
He had different lineups.
It was different lineups. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was different lineups or if just one it hadn't updated on the screen, or if there was a stat correction.
I checked the same thing. Yeah. To see if he did it with 2 of them were the same and one of them was totally unique from the others.
That's crazy.
It's amazing, right? Incredible. That's why those sims, man, it's like you take hand building and then just supercharge it. It's really cool stuff. But anyway, you guys are the best, man. I hope you have a great night. Greg and I'll be back here tomorrow. Sims edition, really important show, I think, going into a slate like this. Final bye weeks are this week, and then things open up a little bit more. So let's enjoy it. Enjoy tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow, and let's make some money. See those Stokastic avatars at the top of the leaderboard. Anything else before we go?
No, I've had the hiccups the entire show, and I'm just happy to make it through to the end.
Nice. You concealed it well.
I did my best.
Did you not try to get rid of them?
I don't know how. I did.
Really?
I drank a bunch of water before this. I lifted weights and tried working out for a little bit. It would not go away. I've been uncomfortable this entire time. But because I'm extremely tough as a content creator, I was able to power through the hiccups and do a show.
I was just saying, no one can imagine. I said it this morning to Spags. I said, my basement's chilly. No one can imagine the life of a content. I mean, this is a tough life. Clearly saying that tongue in cheek, because I have brother-in-laws who work 4 stories up outside in the winter. And it's like, yeah, how was your day? Oh, I'm freezing, man. I think I have frostbite. What about you? My back hurts a little bit. You know, I sat a lot today. Anyway, appreciate you guys. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Good luck, and bye-bye.